What are you seeing with your offense?
Stop. Really? Is that the first question? We won the game 20-10. Try another question. What do you want me to tell you? I just laid it out for you. We played the game to win the game. We played the game to win the game.
All right. How about third down then? What is going on with third down?
It's one game.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to First and Short, your first place to get short bits of college football news and analysis. My name is Aaron. I'm here with my co-host, Mashfik. What you just listened to was Brian Kelly talking back to a reporter about their 20-10 win against Florida. We're going to talk more about that in a bit, but let's talk about what else is going to be on the agenda for today. We're going to talk about UCLA a little bit. They just fired in real time, probably 20-30 minutes ago, their head coach, Deshaun Foster. We're going to talk about UGA and their win in overtime against Tennessee in Knoxville and good old Rocky Top. We're going to talk about how we went to the Clemson and Georgia Tech game and got some live college football experience and just being in that atmosphere of that thriller. And then we're going to talk about how we did in our picks and in our underdog picks. And we're also going to talk about who had the saddest Saturday in our Saturday segment. But first things first, let's go back and, talk and analyze that video with Brian Kelly. The reporter basically, he gets onto the podium and they're asking him about, third down conversions and just how poorly, if you want to call it, his offense performed. Just off the rip, he went 4 for 14 on third down, and ultimately he still won the game 20-10 against Florida.
Good defense on that Florida team too.
Yeah, really, really, really great defense. Mash, do you have any initial thoughts on that?
I mean, I kind of get both sides of it. Like, the reporter's doing his job. He needs, if you're working for a Louisiana, Baton Rouge newspaper, you need to ask those questions because you need to write things for your newspaper. Brian Kelly's job is to win football games, and it's a long season, and not every game is going to be great. Not every game is going to be 100-0. Some games are going to be slugfest like that, especially like a good Florida defense, like we just mentioned. So not like I said, not every game is going to be 100-0. Some of them are going to look like 20-10, but a win's a win, I think, especially in this situation.
I definitely agree. Ultimately, Brian Kelly's finding a way to win, right? In past seasons, LSU fans have been complaining about, not winning the season opener, not winning against those rivals or those SEC foes they face every year. The fact of the matter is the guy's finding a way to win this year. I said earlier in one of our earlier episodes, when he was potentially one of our coaches that's in the hot seat, there is a certain standard at LSU that is very high. But what I really want people to do is really take a step back and appreciate and, not take advantage of the position the team is in right now. I mean, we're talking about an undefeated team right now. We're talking about a team who's going to be ranked in the top 4 next week. Like, of course there's always time to improve, always time to have better performance. But the bottom line is he is finding a way to win week in, week out.
Right. Yeah. I used to live in Baton Rouge. I know how important this game is against Florida, specifically to the people that live in Baton Rouge and, LSU fans. So for him to be able to do that, at night in Death Valley, I think that's all that matters. Like you said, there's going to be time to improve. It's a long season. Yeah, maybe third down efficiency bites them later, but that's something that they can work on. That's why they play a whole season and not just one game. But moving on to another coach who's maybe not doing so well, like you said, Deshaun Foster. While we were wrapping up, our preparations for this episode, Deshaun Foster at UCLA head coach, he just got fired. I don't know what else there is to say. He had a terrible start. The bottom line is UCLA was 0-3 with Nico Iamaleava. They lost to 2 Group of 5 teams, UNLV and New Mexico. And I think that was just the final straw. It's the program's worst start in years, and the team looked completely outmatched in every single game. Unfortunately, there was just zero improvement over this last year. You get this high level quarterback. Fans expected a bounce back year when you have someone at the quarterback position like Nico Iamaleava, but the offense was a mess. The defense was giving up large chunk plays all the time. There were just no signs of progress under Deshaun Foster's leadership. While Foster, was a beloved alum of this school, he just had no head coaching experience. He was really, if you guys have ever seen the press conference when he was like first introduced, where he was like, "What you need to know about UCLA? We're in LA." From that moment, you knew this wasn't gonna end well. He had no head coaching experience, and that inexperience really showed on the field. His team struggled, with discipline and overall performance throughout his tenure. Unfortunately, the price tag is pretty costly. Not only are they paying Nico a lot of money, not only did they pay their the New Mexico Lobos a bunch of money to come play and lose to them, his price tag is pretty costly as well. They're gonna have to pay out over $6 million to this guy, so it's hard to feel bad for him. But that is a huge price tag for a program already dealing with low attendance and lack of excitement for the future of this program. It's hard to take over. Chip Kelly was the coach here before he went on to be an offensive coordinator at Ohio State when they did their national title run. It's hard to take over in that situation. We'll see how interim head coach Tim Skipper will do. He was also an interim head coach at Fresno State, where he led them to a 7-7 season and also had a bowl win. So maybe something will get better there. Moving along to the rest of the league, let's just look at it high level. How do we feel about this weekend as a whole? The Big Ten is mostly still playing like out of conference games, so not much in terms of observations there. The ACC and SEC, they're getting into their conference schedules. We'll talk about a few of those games in a little bit. The Big 12, I wanted to cover this real quick. Iowa State and Houston are top 2 in the leaderboards in the Big 12. Aaron, guess who's at the bottom?
I have no idea. Tell me.
Our favorites to win the conference, Kansas State. Big 12 is really anybody's game at this point. Do you have any thoughts over this weekend, Aaron?
It sucks that our pick is just taking a complete 180 turn in the wrong direction this year. But we did mention in one of our earlier episodes with how Big 12 play goes, it's literally anybody's chance to be their year and have a chance to contend for a title and get a playoff berth. So, I mean, hey, week in and week out, you never know who's going to win.
Yep.
Yeah, man. You mentioned there were some conference games going into the schedule this week, right?
Right.
It's so early in the season, and everyone seems so stacked, specifically in the SEC. Mm-hmm. We came into this week with, I think, 11 teams from the SEC that were ranked in the top 25. So let's talk about some dominance.
That's good television.
Right. Yeah, that is. So a lot of critical games. Some of those top 25 teams matched up against each other. So you're going to start to see a balance of power and some records start to diminish. In particular, the game that we're about to talk about is UGA this weekend. They came in and they went in and they shocked Tennessee and Knoxville in overtime this weekend. Yep. So let's talk about some of the things we initially saw in the game. Tennessee, they started off with a very explosive first quarter. Joey Aguilar, he ran that first TD in. You could tell, this volunteer team had a different level of juice to them, right? Mm-hmm. Even though Aguilar led the FBS in interception last year, this guy, he really came in, with a bunch of confidence in himself, and the coaching staff had a lot of confidence in him. He ended up completing his first 14 passes, his first 14. He had over 200 yards and 2 TDs in the first time in the SEC in over 20 years. So, I mean, just breaking down that Georgia defense, who's usually notoriously known for, not letting that happen.
Yeah, I was getting big when, as quickly as they scored, I was getting when UGA played Alabama last year, I was getting, this is about to go off the rails real quick, which it kind of did. I'll let you get into that.
Yes. I mean, you saw some of those, explosive plays. One guy I want to mention on the Tennessee side of things, Chris Braswell, right? he was a name we told you needed to watch, right? Didn't realize we were going to have to be watching him that much, but he had a monster 72-yard touchdown reception that was one of Tennessee's 3 in the first quarter, and only 2 other teams have been able to score 3 touchdowns in the first 3 possessions on a Kirby Smart led team. So that's a pretty good statistic. Your cream rising to the top, basically, exposing a Kirby Smart defense.
How do you think Tennessee was able to be so successful in the first quarter? What were they doing? Did they just catch Georgia off guard, or what was going on?
I think there were so many factors that played into that first quarter and those first 3 drives. One, the environment. I think the environment definitely, played an initial part into it. I know it got into the nerves of the young UGA team being in a crowd of over 100,000 people. But the offensive coordinator in Tennessee's offense, they did a really good job of mixing up their plays. You saw a little bit of run, a little bit of passing misdirection, and then they didn't waste any time taking their deep shots when they wanted to. So again, hats off to Joey Aguilar and his receiving core, because they executed when they needed to.
Yeah, I think Josh Heupel, he gets, obviously the highlights are always going to be like the big throws down the field, but Josh Heupel runs the ball a lot, and that sets up those long plays, right? So I think they've always been a good running team, and yesterday was no different. Once the second quarter started, UGA was starting to find their rhythm a little bit more on both sides of the ball. They started clawing back at that lead, at that deficit that they were in. They were on a 3rd and 7 when they were down 21-7. Aaron, guess what Mike Bobo dials up? A screen pass to Zachariah Branch, and a screen pass. Yep, and he takes it in for a 36-yard touchdown, blazing fast speed. We'll take a look at some of the touchdowns that Georgia had later on, but on defense, they were able to make some adjustments to contain Aguilar. In the second quarter, Tennessee went punt, interception. Much different than how the first quarter went. This is also about when you want to start buying some stock in Stockton. He's getting into a flow with his receivers that will continue to become a strength in the second half that we'll talk about in a bit. In any case, at halftime, the score is now 21-17 Tennessee. So Tennessee didn't score any points in the second quarter. At the end of the day, we know UGA won this game. Aaron, I wanted to ask you, what adjustments did they make at the half? What adjustments did UGA make at the half that made them successful?
Sure. So I think at least for 1 or 2 drives in the second half, UGA came out and they really were playing their brand of football, right? Being dominant, establishing that run game, and then, once you establish that, making plays and developing other types of matchups after establishing that. Like I said, they started out the third quarter with a touchdown drive. They had 14 plays, 13 of them were runs. So again, I think they were giving their young offensive line confidence by controlling the ball and letting them punish the defensive line. A lot of time as an offensive lineman, you have to, when you're pass blocking, it's all about protection. But all those runs, they had a chance to really set some dominance and really try to bully that defensive line back.
Yeah. I think that first drive chewed up the entire. I think that first drive that they had chewed up almost an entire half with that one drive.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And so after that, UGA, they start to build somewhat of a lead, right? Their defense even gets another interception before Joey Aguilar hits Brazel again for a deep TD, and he takes the lead 28-27 going into the fourth. So tell me a little bit about what you saw going into the fourth quarter, Mash.
The momentum was going back and forth. I was watching this game on my phone. I was at a friend's housewarming party. I was not involved in the party at all. I'm just in the kitchen walking back and forth, just watching this thing on my phone, right? Like I said, momentum shifts on both sides. It was that's what makes a classic game, I think, momentum shifts. And lead changes for both of these teams. They kept going back and forth. And that was the case up until near the end when Gunnar Stockton gets sacked and fumbles the ball and you start to get this feeling, is this about to happen? Is Tennessee about to make this, a reality? Tennessee gets a field goal after that sack and fumble. Tennessee has UGA on 4th and 6 with 2:32 left in the game. Tennessee's up by 8 points. Now you're starting to think, wow, Josh Heupel and the Volunteers are about to win for the first time in 8 years in front of the loudest recorded group of human beings in history. And then Gunnar Stockton delivers a 28-yard touchdown to London Humphreys. What were all those questions again about Gunnar Stockton not being able to make the big throws? Like, is that something that we're still asking ourselves? All right, anyway, we'll get into that in a bit. The game's not over yet. Tennessee gets the ball back, and they are driving very effectively down the field. They get into field goal range. At this point, I'm in the bathroom. The problem is, for Tennessee, every time the camera cuts to the kicker, you can see the fear in his eyes. This guy he's not ready for this moment. That and the false start penalty causes him to miss wide right. So game goes into overtime. Tennessee ends their first drive with a field goal. UGA ends up winning the game in overtime with a rushing touchdown with transfer running back Josh McCray. It was a rushing touchdown that needed some video review, but it was a touchdown, and fortunately no players had to dodge any mustard bottles on the way out of the stadium. So UGA wins the game. Instant classic, I think. There are a couple of plays, Aaron, that I wanted to analyze with you. One's a touchdown by Brazel, and one was the touchdown by London Humphreys. So we will get started on this first play. So once again, this will be the Chris Brazel touchdown in the third quarter. So Aaron, before we get started here, this is the offense, this is the defense. Tennessee has the ball. What are you seeing here? Chris Brazel, he's all the way up top. It looks like man-to-man coverage, or what is the offense showing? What is the defense showing here?
Tennessee's looking, like they're in a pretty wide shotgun spread. I can't really tell what Georgia's running in terms of their defense yet, but I think they got a lot of DBs back to be prepared for those explosive plays. Unfortunately, on this one, it didn't end in the way they wanted to. So if you run the play,
let me turn the sound down. All right.
If you run the play, you can kind of see that there's one-on-one coverage. The DB looks like he's in, great position. He just doesn't execute and time his jump correctly. Kind of looks like, Brazel kind of puts a hand on him, but it was determined that, it wasn't anything that was impactful enough to be called offensive PI. Hey, Brazel's a great, 6'5" receiver. I expect to see so many more explosive plays like this when he's one-on-one in coverage in future games.
Mm-hmm. In retrospect, what could UGA have done better on this specific play?
Hey, I think they did everything they wanted to from a play calling standpoint. They had their DB in position. It's supposed to be best on best. Sometimes you just got to execute. You want those plays where you have your DB exactly where he needs to be, and he essentially he did what you want an aggressive DB to do, which is turn around, find the ball, and play receiver. But if you're going to play receiver and try to go after the ball, make sure that you're going to be the one going to get it and bodying off the receiver. And instead,
Gotcha.
He kind of got bodied off and jumped over.
All right, so that's that play. The second play I wanted to go over with you was the touchdown pass by Gunnar Stockton on that fourth down to London Humphreys. Let me turn that off. Okay, so similar question. What is UGA showing on the offensive side? What is Tennessee anticipating that Georgia does? It is 4th and 6 on Tennessee's side of the field. Only 2 minutes left. Based on their kind of formation, what do you think Tennessee thinks Georgia's going to do versus what actually happens?
Sure. So I think in this play right here, at this point in the game, Tennessee's licking their chops, right? They've disgruntled that offensive line a lot of the second half. They've just, not too far back, sacked Gunnar Stockton, made him fumble the ball. So I think it looks like they're trying to send pressure and, not give him any time to make any type of read. I'm sure they're assuming that Georgia's going to try to go for the first down and not necessarily a home run ball, but
Right.
Georgia saw the one-on-one play quickly, and if you run the play, Tennessee sends a couple guys. Gunner sees the one-on-one coverage, and I think that's classic Mike Bobo ball, right? If he's going to throw that deep ball, he's going to want the quarterback to hit that back shoulder, and Gunner placed it perfectly. London Humphreys made an incredible acrobatic move to make the catch. I want you to look at the cornerback on that play, though. You got number 4, Tyler Redmond. He's going to be great. I think he's a true freshman right now for Tennessee, but I know one of Georgia's key game plans was to attack him just because he's a younger guy that doesn't have much experience. And so they kept going after him, and I think they went after him intentionally on this last play to try to, expose him and put him in the bright lights in the bright moment.
Yeah. That's good. His teammate there kind of picked him up, didn't blame him for it. Not much you can do on a throw like that.
Exactly. And then there was still a lot of ball game left. So, you just got to keep your head up and keep going. But ultimately, we saw that Georgia found a way to win in the end. What are some of your overall takeaways from the game, Ash?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from this game, both defenses, I think UGA's defense probably wasn't where we thought it would be. They were getting exposed a lot, but and Tennessee's defense probably played above where we thought they were, but they're a good defense in their own regard. I'm happy with the performance with both of these quarterbacks. I think you could say I was pleasantly surprised. Yes, Aguilar hasn't seen an SEC defense before, except that he's seeing one of the SEC's best defenses in practice in Knoxville week in and week out, right? And I think he was prepared for this one on Saturday. I was pleasantly surprised with Gunnar Stockton. He's been limited in what the game plan has been and what he's been showing us in terms of his throwing prowess. But he put that to bed, I think. He had 3 players with long receptions of 45, 36, and 31 yards, 3 different players. So he was making those deep throws. He was making the throws when it counted. And that was paramount for UGA's win over Tennessee. I think the most ironic part of this entire game, obviously, if you've been on social media, this whole, stadium noise thing, Tennessee's the loudest stadium. Tennessee is the best stadium in the world. I've never been, but I believe it. It looks great. It's funny enough about that stadium noise that Tennessee actually ended regulation with a false start. Not because of the crowd noise, but they ended with a false start and then they missed that go-ahead field goal. Even with the crowd noise and even with all the issues on offensive line with injuries and stuff, UGA had 0 false starts the entire game. So those are my key takeaways. Once again, UGA wins this one in overtime. All-time classic, for sure. I'll be taking another watch later today.
Absolutely.
What about the rest of the league? We had some picks from last week, right? Aaron, I went 4-7. You went 5-7. So you win. But we did go 2 for 2 for our underdog picks. Technically, one of them wasn't an underdog, but we did say Texas A&M take the points. They ended up winning the game. And I said that LSU was going to kind of dog walk Florida. They only won by 10, but the spread, I think, was 7.5. So 2 for 2 there. We are 3-1 on the season so far. The game that we actually went to, Aaron, you and I, we went to Georgia Tech versus number 12 Clemson. I was very excited to be in the environment. We saw Flo Rida in concert at their kind of block party beforehand. Yellow Jacket fans were fired up for this game. It was their whiteout game. They were fired up the entire time. We both thought number 8 on Clemson was a dude, Adam Randall. He's only 6'2", but he looked only 6'2". But he looked like he was built like a tight end. and he was looking like a man amongst boys out there. We actually got to go on the field after the win. I thought that go ahead field goal at the end, like the time management there was like super impressive to be able to do that without a timeout and to be able to nail it from, I think it was 55 yards. And we got to go hang out with Haynes King for a little bit. By hang out, I mean I followed him around with my camera. We'll put some B-roll on that up here in a bit. But yeah, Clemson's offense, with Cade Klubnik, it struggled to get going, and they had two crucial, turnovers that proved to be, the difference in the game, where the Tigers were favored, but they were outgained by their opponent. I thought Georgia Tech showed up, and they beat them on every phase of the ball game. Any additional thoughts there?
Yeah, no.
I think you picked Georgia Tech. I had picked Clemson, so this is the ones that you got over me.
Yeah, so this is one of those critical wins that Georgia Tech needs to make their case for an ACC title or a potential playoff berth. So, yeah, solid winning for those guys. Dabo Swinney's got to go back to the drawing board, right? I think he's 1-2 now in the year, so yeah, there's trouble in paradise right now in Clemson. Next on the list, we got number 19 Alabama beating Wisconsin 38-14. Key takeaways from there: Alabama's offense, I think they found their rhythm with Ty Simpson. He's been throwing for 382 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Crimson Tide defense was also dominant, holding Wisconsin to just 209 yards total, and forcing 2 interceptions as well. The Badgers, they struggled without their starting quarterback, who was out with injury. Overall, another solid win for Alabama. They're going to get ready to get into SEC play really soon.
Yep. We both picked Alabama for that one. I thought that I think there was a very low chance of that being an upset there. Number 5, Miami 49. Number 18, USF 12. Like we said in the last episode, USF was bound to run out of juice. I think Miami is on a roll right now, and USF could not compete athlete-wise with how Miami's looking right now. Miami's offense was in full tilt. They put up almost 600 yards in total offense. Carson Beck, I'm happy for him, man. He was lights out. He had 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. His running back, Mark Fletcher, added another 120 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. It's crazy what Carson Beck can show you on tape when he has the people around him to help. The Hurricanes' defense was also a force. They held the Bulls to just 40 rushing yards. I think we both picked Miami for this one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great win. They're talking about they're the team that's going to run the state now. Next on the list, we got our underdog pick of the week. Texas A&M. They came and escaped a huge road win, 41-40 against Notre Dame. It was a huge win. Quarterback for Texas A&M, Marcel Reed, threw an 11-yard touchdown with just 13 seconds left in the game. The Aggies' passing attack was led by wide receiver Mario Craver. He had 207 yards. It was way too much for the Irish defense to handle. The Irish are now 0-2 in the season, seriously jeopardizing their college football playoff hopes. September is about halfway over, and Notre Dame has still not won a football game this season. That is something that's almost unheard of,
Yeah.
Yep. Texas A&M. This is their first ranked road win since 2014. So, pretty cool statistic there.
Yeah. That's over 10. That's 11 years. Good. Mike Elko's got him on the right track. We talked about Brian Kelly earlier. Number 3, LSU put up 20 points against Florida. They've scored 10. LSU, you could say LSU's defense was the hero of the day, but DJ Lagway was just throwing them up there and throwing it to the wrong team, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. The Tigers intercepted Florida quarterback DJ Lagway 5 times. One of those picks going for a 58-yard pick 6 in the second half, and I don't know. Florida just looks broken right now. Billy Napier looks out of the water, just doesn't know what to do right now. The LSU offense was not at its best. Garrett Nussmeier, he was making some questionable throws. He had a kind of a bad pick himself, but the defense came up with huge plays when it mattered most. Florida is going to be one of our Saturday teams. There's an interesting stat in there that we're going to talk about, but yeah, those 5 picks were tough to watch. I think we both picked LSU on this one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, man. Hey, man, the Florida Gators and Billy Napier, right? They got to figure out how to pull it together. I think he's going to struggle to maintain the motivation and confidence of his team after this week, but he's got to figure it out, or else he's going to move closer and closer to the top of our hot seat list, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Moving on to the next game, we had Vanderbilt coming into Columbia, South Carolina, and they, were another huge upset in the SEC this weekend. Vanderbilt's defense played an incredible game. They forced 4 turnovers, and they held the Gamecocks to just 7 points. I know Lenore Sellers, I think he went out in the second quarter with an injury, and the Commodores took full advantage of that. They snapped a 16-game losing streak to the Gamecocks. Hats off to the Commodores and to Diego Pavia, right? I mean, he had an outstanding game as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you could say, I think we both picked South Carolina on this one. Obviously, we don't want to see any injuries, especially to Lenore Sellers, like your quarterback. But even without Lenore Sellers, like Vanderbilt still put up 31 points. Lenore Sellers doesn't play defense. Vanderbilt still put up 31 points, and I think that's pretty impressive for Clark Lee and his program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that wraps up all of our kind of the games that we wanted to cover. We want to go into our last segment, Saturday, and figure out which team had the Saturday. So, Aaron, you want to kick us off there?
Sure. So, yeah, I'm going to, just read off the list of teams and their stats, and Mash is going to make the picks this week. So, to explain the Saturday segment one more time, we have 4 teams who essentially, had, statistically bad games or bad things happen to them on Saturday. And so we're going to put them into a tournament style bracket and, rank them and make them compete against each other to see who had the saddest Saturday. So the list is 1 through 4. We got, Florida ranked number 1, UCLA ranked number 2, South Carolina at number 3, and Texas at number 4. So 1 and 4 are going to go against each other first. So we got number 1 Florida. We got DJ Lightway. He had 5 picks, but another statistic that he had, he was 13 more first downs and 37 minutes time of possession. So, they basically control the ball, but the interceptions track with what happened when they had the ball, right?
Yeah.
And then you had Texas, number 4. They had Arch Manning. He had a QBR rating of 26.5. So, Mash, who had the Saturday out of these 2 teams?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with Florida on that one just because that was a good game. I understand Arch didn't have a great game, but they were playing – who were they playing? UTEP or something? It's understandable if you don't want to put Arch on full display there. So a low QBR, it can make sense. 5 picks, and especially those other numbers that basically track with the 5 interceptions. You had 13 more first downs than LSU, and you had 37 minutes of time of possession, but still, lost the game. That's a sad day.
Mm-hmm. Yep, nope, I definitely agree with you there. Hey, I'm interested to see, Texas. They've been playing cupcake teams the past 2 weeks. I'm interested to see them get into some of their conference play really soon.
I know, right? Yeah.
Okay, so at number 2, right, you got UCLA, who just recently fired their head coach, but they were also 3 of 11 on third down conversions. And we have them faced off against the University of South Carolina, only, scoring 7 points in the first quarter. And then that's it. So who had the Saturday out of those 2 teams?
We've been picking on UCLA for a while. I think I'm going to pull our committee card. I'm going to have to go with South Carolina. 7 points in the first quarter. I understand. Well, Lenore Sellers went out in the second quarter, right? You have Nick Harbor still, right? Like, throw it to him. 7 points in the first quarter, and that being it is pretty sad. I'm going to go with number 3, South Carolina.
Okay. So we got in the finals for this Saturday, we got number 1 Florida. Another bad statistic that they had is they only had about 2.9 yards per rush. So that's not very, dominant on the run game, establishing some type of cadence on offense. And then you also have, number 3 South Carolina. Both of the quarterbacks that came into the game this Saturday, they both threw interceptions. So, Mash, out of Florida and South Carolina, who had the Saturday?
Yeah, I'm going to think, I'm going to go with Florida, 2.9 yards per rush. DJ Lagway's already having an issue, throwing the ball. Your running backs have to help. Your offensive line has to come through and create those running lanes to help your quarterback out, and clearly they're not able to do that either. So it sucks that our Saturday finals are 2 SEC teams, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. I think Florida was the Saturday, had the Saturday this Saturday. All the way around. So that wraps up this week. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back Thursday to talk about our Week 4 preview. Some of those games include Texas Tech at Utah. Auburn will be headed up to Oklahoma. Michigan will be playing at Nebraska. And Florida will be playing at Miami. So some great games to watch. I think, Big Ten is starting up their conference games. So lots to talk about there. We'll bring you our underdog picks, any news that comes up between now and then, and games that you should be tuned into. So until then, thanks for watching. This has been another episode of First and Short. Thank you.